So now that you got the base settings in your camera, hopefully you got a chance to go out there and take some pictures. And if you're like me, when you first put your camera in automatic mode and you started taking pictures, you were amazed that the quality is actually really good. You know, you didn't even know anything about the camera. All you know is that you just pointed at something and you kind of mess around with that function, that focus function a little bit, and you're just trying to get things to be clear, and you take a picture and you're like, wow, this is great. I don't know anything, and it's actually looking pretty good. And that's really the great thing about shooting in automatic mode. It gets you to a place where you can actually get some results and you can see what this thing is really capable of. Now, if you're like me and you started to take pictures, you're gonna run into that first frustration when you're using your camera, and that's going to be, how do I focus on my intended subject? So to get a grasp of how the focus works in our camera, I'm gonna go ahead and put the objects here on my little makeshift studio back here. And we're gonna try to get a focus on the intended subject one at a time. Now, to do this, we're gonna have to explain the three things, or three variables that affect focus on our camera. Now, the first is, are we using automatic focus or are we using a manual focus to get our focus? The second is, are we using one shot? Are we using an AI servo, or are we using an AI focus? Now, the last thing is the placement of focus in our frame. And we're gonna go over dot focus for this. Switching from manual focus to automatic focus is always a one-step process done on the camera's lens. You simply have to switch between AF to MF, automatic focus to manual focus. Now, if you're shooting a still life, you're going to want to collapse your lens all the way down using the larger focus ring. The smaller focus ring at the end of the lens is used to get the accurate focus of a subject. So I'm going to start by explaining manual mode first. Manual mode is the most effective way to get a still life in focus, but you have to have the time to get the subject in focus using this method. I'm going to take these Godzilla here, and I'm going to take my little yellow car, get below these two subjects so I can put them both in the frame. And then I'm just going to use the focus ring on the end of my lens, and I'm going to see if I can get a tight focus on this yellow car in the foreground. And I can, pretty accurately. Then I'm going to try to get a focus on my Godzilla's face in the background, and with a little bit of patience, I can do that as well. Now, this is the most effective way to get a focus on your subjects if you have still lives. So now that I've switched my camera to automatic focus, I'm going to go ahead and get down in the same position, get my subjects in the frame, and this may be slightly different, but let's see what happens. Now, you can see in the first image, I've got a clear focus of my car in the foreground, and my Godzilla is blurry. Now, when I take the next picture, you can see that the focus switches on its own. Now, all of a sudden, my Godzilla is focused, but my car is blurry. Now, this is happening because the camera is making focus decisions on its own. If I want to make the focus decisions in the frame, I need to actually change the focus settings. Now, in the third image, I moved a little bit, and they're actually a little blurry in this one. Now, this is because the camera is deciding what should be in focus and what shouldn't be in the focus. So, how do we alleviate this problem? Well, once your camera is shooting in automatic mode, you need to change the focus operations. Now, in the focus operations, we have one shot, the AI servo, and the AI focus. So Canon's one shot is Icon's AFS. If you're looking at the Icon's AFC, that's really Canon's Al servo. Now, I'm going to start by demonstrating Al servo mode first. Al servo mode tracks moving subjects, more dynamic subjects. This is good for kids or maybe shooting a sporting event. To demonstrate, I'm going to put my hand in front of the lens. You can see that the traction's pretty good. Even when I move my hand away from the frame, it quickly gets a focus on my backdrop here in the background. Now, Al servo, or continuous focus, is really useful when we have moving subjects, but when we have a static subject, maybe like the still life behind me, it's more useful to use the one shot. And this is because your camera is using autofocus, but focusing in on a much tighter area. The one that we want to stay away from is going to be Canon's AI focus and Icon's AFA. When we place the camera on this function, we are telling our camera to make that focus decision for us. Now, we want to get away from that. So for this shot, we're going to be using the one shot. So now that I have my camera in autofocus and I'm shooting one shot in my operation, let's see how much better I can do at getting a subject in focus one at a time. So you can see that autofocusing with one shot works pretty well to get one of your subjects clear. In this shot, I've got a pretty good shot of Godzilla, and my foreground subject of the car is blurry. However, when I try to get my car in focus, I have to move the car to the middle of the frame. And the reason this is happening is because my camera is set to focus on the middle of the frame. The only way to change this is to use or move around our dot focus. Now, in order to change this, I'm going to have to go into my dot focus settings here by pushing the magnifying glass on the top right-hand side of my Canon camera. And you can see that I can move around the dot focus. Obviously it's in the center now. If I move it to where all the lights are lit up, it's usually for multiple subjects in the same frame. In order to get an accurate focus on my car, I'm going to have to move the dot to the bottom of the frame. And then when I want to switch it to the Godzilla character, I just move the dot to the top. So in order to change your dot focus on the icon, you have to get into the camera settings. So push the eye here at the bottom left-hand side of your camera body. Now you can see that the camera's already set to the autofocus operations. Right below that, you're gonna find the autofocus mode. Once you're in mode, you're going to have to take a look at a couple of the settings. Usually at the top here, you're gonna have a selection between dynamic focus and you're gonna have single subject focus. Now obviously we don't have a dynamic subject, or again our subjects are not moving around. You want to stay with single subject. Now when you choose single subject, this will also give you your options to move your focus point. Both of these operations are very easy to use and very useful. Just practice them a few times, make sure that you can use them quickly and you will never go back. It's one of the best ways to get a very accurate focus on a subject.
It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not. Still, we should run like it is Godzilla! Though it isn't.
Thanks for watching our video on settings, you guys. If you were interested in the next video in this series, just go ahead and log in and we will send you the whole class as a free email course.